Hello and welcome to Hare Investigations. I'm your host, Anna Rucco.
Hare Investigations. Fort Riggs Revisited. The Ghost and the Grave. In this episode, we will be revisiting Fort Riggs. After all the investigating I did for the Wapiti Indians series, I came across a valuable piece of information that led me back to Fort Riggs. Now, this is just a theory, but all the pieces fit. The theory is about Rainfall's family. So here goes. So the pieces of information that I collected that caught my attention, of course, was Rainfall, being the chieftain of the Wapiti Indians, possibly during the time of being at Fort Riggs, the solo grave that bears a striking resemblance to another location, and the mysterious light. So let's start with Rainfalls. Our first piece of evidence for this case is going to be the file on Rainsfall. Now, Rainsfall is the Wapiti chieftain living at the scratching post. Currently has no relatives living that we know about. Now, Rainsfall received the title of chieftain of the Wapiti Indians prior to 1899. The Wapiti Indians were detained in Fort Riggs sometime after this. I think his wife and son were killed during this forced confinement. Now, Rainfall's, like I said, sometime prior to 1899, Rainsfall was named chieftain of the Wapiti Indians. As a young man, he fought for his tribe, though he later became a pacifist. Rainsfall had signed 3 treaties with the United States government as of 1899, 2 of which had already been broken, while the third consigned his tribe to live on the Wapiti Indian Reservation. Rainsfall also had a wife and 2 sons. His older son had his head smashed in by a drunken soldier, and his wife had her throat slit, also by a soldier. Only his young son, Eagle Flies, lived past Fort Riggs. Of course, we know that he later dies at the Wapiti Reservation. So Rainfalls had a wife and son, both killed before 1899. This is what caught my attention. So if Rainfall was the chief of the Wapiti while the tribe was held at Fort Riggs, and since they did not have access to the native burial ground, his son would have been buried different than the other tribespeople. Remember the solo grave? Fort Riggs Solo Grave. Not far from Fort Riggs is a single decorated grave. It is decorated with a single human skull, feathers, various bones, and a set of buffalo horns. The fact that it has a decorated marker of Native American qualities would suggest that the person buried here might have been someone of great importance, such as a chief. Status: male warrior burial. Now, upon seeing this single grave marker, it reminded me of another marker I'd seen at another location, the Native American Burial Ground, Big Valley, West Elizabeth. Located against 2 trees on the northwest side of the site is a totem made with a set of buffalo horns, a skull, a set of feathers, wings, and neck binding, also to signal a male warrior burial. So we know, based on the burial practices of the Wapiti tribe, that only the male warriors and higher were buried. The children and women's bodies were generally placed in the brush to decay naturally. This leads me to believe that this solo grave at Fort Riggs could very well be Rainsfall's son that was killed by soldiers. But what about his wife? Fort Riggs Phantom Light. Location: Fort Riggs. If you stand on the hill on a foggy night and look down at the schoolhouse in Fort Riggs, you will notice that there is a light illuminating the front portion of the building. When you look through binoculars, you can see the illumination is being produced by a single point of light. However, as you move closer to the schoolhouse, the light grows dimmer and dimmer till it eventually goes out completely. Status: unknown entity. Alright, let's check out video evidence on this phantom light. So what could this phantom light actually be? So again, based on the burial practices of the Wapiti Indian tribe, the body of Rainsfall's wife should have been left out in the brush to decay. However, it is likely the soldiers of the fort would not have allowed this and would have buried her body probably in the mass grave. This could have caused her spirit to be unrestful and still haunt Fort Riggs. Hare Investigations' final conclusions. Based on all of the evidence collected and pieces put together, I think it all fits. Rainfall's son is the one buried in the solo grave based on the totem located as a headstone. Rainfall's wife was buried in one of the mass graves, which is not traditional, which caused her spirit to haunt the fort. So the ghost in the grave is Rainfall's wife and son. Now, this is just my theory on who the ghost and who's in the grave really are. There could be 100 different theories and solutions out there. This is just my take on it based on the evidence. I hope you enjoyed.